It's wonderful to be here with you this afternoon, Madam Pro Tem, Mr. Speaker, leaders of the House and the Senate, legislators and friends. It's so wonderful to be back. I miss you. And I'm especially grateful to have the opportunity to be here today amongst all of you and my good friend, Representative Gabe Vasquez, to address the House and to celebrate all of the work that we have been doing here on behalf of the people of New Mexico. As we stand here this afternoon, I believe that we are at a major inflection point in American history. Just 1 week ago, a new administration took office, a new Congress began its work, and the New Mexico Legislature ushered in a new era, swearing in the most women in the history of our state and the largest female legislative majority in American history. Girl power. And as I was thinking about it, driving up here to Santa Fe this morning, I was thinking about how when I took my first oath of office as an elected in this chamber just 6 years ago, my class was the first female Democratic majority in the House, and now look how far we've come. It's amazing, it's inspiring, and when you look at everything you've accomplished in just the last few years, it is truly extraordinary and transformational for our state. We have made New Mexico the first nation to guarantee early childhood education, free college for all, to protect Native American voting rights, to protect civil rights and LGBTQ rights. And even though it's not a legislative accomplishment, our Lobos are currently #1 in the Western Conference. Woo! What this means is that we have set New Mexico on a path to deliver on a promise that is as big, as bold, and as beautiful as the people of our state. And I couldn't be more proud of all of the work that we've done and everything you are about to do during this session. And as I said to many of you the other night, you are the history makers, the dragon slayers, the change makers, and the leaders who are going to continue to keep this state moving forward. You can clap for that. As a native New Mexican, born and raised in a working family from Farmington, New Mexico to the North Valley of Albuquerque, I believe in the heart of my hearts that we must continue to chart a course forward with a bold vision for our people and to always keep our communities at the center of our work. And that is why when I took my oath of office to become your Congresswoman just 3.5 years ago, I thought it was critical to show New Mexico and the world that our communities would be at the center of my work. In fact, after my election in 2021, the Speaker's office in Washington, D.C. called and asked how I wanted to take my oath of office, because members in Congress can take their oath on any document they choose. And so I immediately called the state historian, who many of you know, and we discussed the option of my using the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo, because the significance of that document, not only for how our people became a part of the United States, but also because it is the living document that ensures the rights of our people, not only to citizenship, but to the lands and waters of our state. But there's a twist in this story, because when we went to go look for a copy of the treaty, I called a friend of mine who worked in the Library of Congress, and when they went down to the shelf to find where they thought the copy of the treaty would be, it wasn't there. And so I decided, as many countless generations of Congress people had done before me, to take my oath on the US Constitution, because you really can't go wrong there. And I started to get ready to head down to the floor. And just as we were leaving my office to go down to the House floor, a gentleman showed up in white gloves with a box. And when he opened the box, inside of it was not only a copy of the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo, it was the actual treaty from 1848 on loan from the Mexican government. They had taken it out of a case. And so I walked down to the floor as he carried it with his white gloves. And as I raised my right hand, a copy of the US Constitution, the treaty sitting on top of it, I raised my hand, and just as you did here in this chamber last week, I took my oath of office before the Speaker, our Creator, the American people, on the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo and the US Constitution. And I committed on that day, as I do every day, that I would spend every single day I am in office working on behalf of the people of New Mexico and the promise of building a future that is as big and bright and beautiful as we can possibly imagine. And so here we are today, 3.5 years later, and I am so deeply proud and honored every day of all of the accomplishments we have had on behalf of the people of New Mexico in Congress and here in this body. And I want to share with you some of the things that we have been doing. In public safety, we've delivered millions for our state and local police to tackle crime and the opioid epidemic. We've funded and led efforts to invest in our behavioral health system and addiction recovery, legislation to curb the flow of fentanyl into our communities, and made historic investments in public safety infrastructure, including building new fire stations in the East Mountains, Sandia Pueblo, and Valencia County that will literally save lives across our rural communities. We've secured millions to invest in healthcare and housing, including in Albuquerque's very first veterans housing campus to help veterans experiencing homelessness. We've worked with state, local, and tribal partners to secure funding for health clinics, housing programs, and food pantries. We helped pass the largest expansion in veterans benefits in decades to help millions of our veterans who bravely fought and served for this country, who were exposed to burn pits and other toxins through their service with the PACT Act. And we passed legislation to revitalize our economy, invest in New Mexico's homegrown businesses and entrepreneurs. We passed the largest infrastructure bill in American history, the CHIPS and Science Act and trades bills that are investing millions of dollars in New Mexico's economy, bringing American-made manufacturing not just back to these shores, but to New Mexico, helping our people and our businesses and our entrepreneurs grow and thrive. In education for our kids, we passed federal legislation to support New Mexico's Early Childhood Education Fund, which you, Mr. Speaker, and countless others in this chamber spent over a decade working to get through this chamber. We've secured hundreds of millions of dollars to rebuild schools across the state, including over $100 million to rebuild the Tohojale Navajo Nation Chapter Community School. We've secured tens of millions of dollars for early childhood education for Mescalero Apache, Sandia Pueblo, the Pueblo Cultural Center, and Ruidoso. And in land, water, and climate, we passed the largest climate bill, not only in the history of the United States, but of any country on planet Earth, and are delivering literally millions of dollars to our electric co-ops, our utilities, and New Mexico's homegrown clean energy businesses. We funded millions in water infrastructure and pipelines across the state, And we worked alongside you here just several months ago to help secure funding to help in the devastating wake of the fires in Ruidoso and Mescalero. And I could not be more grateful for our communities for your work. We are also championing legislation to restore the Rio Grande and to protect our water rights, to fight for our tribal and our Pueblo water rights here in New Mexico, to return and to protect the sacred lands of our sovereign Pueblo and tribal nations, to make sure that our land grants can access their historical lands. And we are championing to get the RECA, Radiation Exposure Act, not only reauthorized but expanded so that our people can finally get justice and compensation for what they have endured. And every day, all across New Mexico, myself and my staff who are here with me are on the front lines working for New Mexico, traveling the state, meeting with our communities, delivering through our casework to thousands of New Mexicans who are struggling with their Social Security, their disability, and so much more. This is the work that my office does every single day on behalf of New Mexico. And I want to thank all of you and all of our state, local, tribal, and nonprofit partners who are literally on the ground making it happen every day. And I want to take this opportunity to ask our guests who are sitting on the rostrum and in the audience to stand and be acknowledged, because without local leaders like you, our state would not move forward. You are also the change makers and dragon slayers. But we know that we still have a lot of work ahead of us. Even absent the political climate and the challenging times that we find ourselves in, the needs of New Mexico's communities are great, and we must continue to deliver for them, to protect them, and to protect the values that we hold most dear. And to do so will mean that we will have to work here together in this chamber and across all aspects of our government and local leadership. We will have to reach across the aisle. We will have to pass legislation. We will have to use the courts. We will have to use our local communities. And where we can, we must continue to move forward and to protect our democracy. And as your Congresswoman, I could not possibly be more proud to be on the front lines of that fight in Washington, D.C., not only serving New Mexico's 1st Congressional District and the entire state, but now serving in leadership in the House as the new ranking member of the DOJ Subcommittee and in the Natural Resources Committee. The work of these committees will be enormous, daunting, and difficult to wrap our arms around. But I know, because I grew up in the North Valley, we are ready for the fight. So, I want to leave you all with this. We know that there will be many difficult days ahead, and that we must remain clear-eyed about the scale of the challenges we face. For those of you who are feeling scared and uncertain about the future of this country, know that we will fight to protect our communities, and especially those who are most vulnerable. We will work to ensure that New Mexico remains a safe haven for everyone across all of our communities. Whether you are an immigrant or your people have lived here since time immemorial, whether your people came up the Camino Real, whether your people came here as homesteaders or as Buffalo Soldiers or as members of the AAPI community, happy Year of the Dragon, everyone. Whether your people hail from the north, the south, the west, or the east, whether you identify as LGBTQ+ or not, we will defend the rights and the freedoms and the democracy of all New Mexicans, and this is your home. And so I say to all of you, do not give up hope, because we have to continue to keep showing up, to keep doing the work, because justice will prevail and we will continue to bend the arc of history towards justice. And for those of you who are embracing the changes you are seeing right now across our country, I ask of you, do not lose your humanity. Remember that we are your neighbors. Remember that there are people in our communities that need you. Remember that you took the oath of office to serve all New Mexicans, and we will continue to do this work together. And my commitment to all of you as your Congresswoman, just as it was on that day in June 2021, when I raised my right hand and took my oath of office on the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo and the Constitution, my promise to you is that I will work fiercely, relentlessly, and with every ounce of grit, determination, and heart to serve our people every single day in our nation's capital and here in New Mexico, and to fight for that big, bold, and beautiful vision we have for New Mexico and our people. So let's get out there and do this, New Mexico.